This Day in Sports History. Hey, and welcome to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. This is a milestone episode of sorts. It is episode number 600. Thanks for joining me on this daily sports journey, whether you listen every day, once a week, or whenever something piques your interest. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I say thank you. If you've got a moment and you haven't done so, how about leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or leave a 5-star rating and add a comment on an episode on Spotify? And if you'd like to send me an email, I would love to hear from you. You can do so at thrivesweetproductions@gmail.com. It's July 19th, and on this day in 1903, the original Tour de France came to a close. As brutal as this bike race was, it is a wonder that there ever was a second one. Henry Desgrange, a man that I've talked about on this podcast a few times, was a newspaper man and a cyclist. He'd been the first to set the hour record on a bike in 1893, riding 22 miles in 60 minutes. Desgrange was a man who ran a publication named L'Autovelo that he printed on yellow paper to distinguish from a similarly named publication that was printed on green paper, and that's going to be kind of important to this story. The idea for the race was hatched by one of his writers, Gio Lefebvre, who thought that a bike race may be a good way to promote the paper and maybe distinguish just a little bit more from that other guy who printed on green paper. When the race was announced in January 1903, it garnered quite a bit of attention, increasing the circulation of the paper nearly threefold. The original idea for the race was to make it a 5-week-long affair with an entry fee of 10 francs. But very few riders entered, and just a week before the scheduled start of the race, a few modifications were made, shortening the race to 6 stages over 2.5 weeks, dropping the entry fee to 5 francs, and increasing the winner's share to 20,000 francs. 79 hardy souls paid the entry fee, with 60 officially starting the race on July 1st. Now, this race is a good bit different from the way it is today in just about every way other than participants rode a bike long distances. 1, a rider could abandon a stage and restart the next day. That rider could compete for daily stage prizes, but he was not eligible for the overall GC prize. The riders were responsible for their own maintenance on the bike. The feed zone was a bit different in that there were food carts along the way, and riders could be penalized for stopping in unauthorized places to eat. Riders also checked in at several checkpoints, signing a logbook to prove that they had passed by and they were not cheating. The first stage was about 290 miles in length, and it started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the 1st. The winner of that first ever stage was Maurice Guérin, who took 17 hours, 14 minutes, and 13 seconds to finish. 37 of the 60 who started made it to the finish line, with the final man taking more than 37 hours to finish the ride. They did have 2 to 3 days between stages to recover and repair their bikes. The shortest stage in this original Tour de France was 166 miles, and the longest stage was the one that ended the race on this day at 293 miles and ended at the Parc des Princes Velodrome with a crowd of about 20,000 on hand to watch Maurice Guérin win his third stage of the Tour. It took another 2 days for the final finisher of Stage 6 to roll over the line. Guérin won the overall general classification with the lowest elapsed time on the road, nearly 3 hours faster than second-place finisher Lucien Potier. Of the 60 who started on the first, 21 managed to finish each stage to place in the general classification, traveling a staggering 1,500 miles. Despite the large attrition rate, the race was a success, and the same route was raced the following year. And the idea to promote the L'Autovelo paper worked. The yellow jersey, which signifies the overall race leader, would not come along until 1919. But the reason for the yellow jersey is connected to the fact that Desgrange printed on yellow paper. There was a Lanterne Rouge, though, a distinction still handed out in the Tour to the man who finishes the race in last place. The 1903 Lanterne Rouge went to Arsène Milaud, who finished nearly 65 hours behind Marin. This episode is brought to you by Sterling Roastery. For several months you've heard me talking about the great products and scents offered by the Sterling Soap Company. And while there may not seem to be any correlation between soap and coffee, what is similar is the same care and attention to detail in delivering great products to their customers. Sterling Roastery will ship great-tasting beans or ground coffee, for whatever coffee-making process you prefer, right to your door. I gave their breakfast blend a try recently, and I can tell you, it was a great way to get my day kick-started with this smooth, medium blend. And just like their soaps, they have a variety to choose from. Give Sterling Roastery a try at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 2009, Tom Watson came within a whisker of winning the Open Championship at the age of 59. Watson loved the Scottish courses, and he had great success on them, winning 5 claret jugs. He came so close to winning a 6th on this day, and of course, it would have been more amazing due to his age. In 2009, the Open Championship was played at Turnberry, 32 years after he'd won there in 1977. After the first round, he was a shot off the lead. By the end of the second round, he had moved into a tie for the lead with American Steve Marino. Late Saturday, Watson was all alone at the top of the leaderboard by a stroke. After birdieing 17 on Sunday, he came to the 18th needing only a par. But his second shot took a hard bounce and it rolled past the green. His chip left him an 8-footer for par and the championship, but his putt lost steam and it came up just a bit short. His tap-in bogey dropped him into a tie with American Stuart Sink. The moment had passed. Watson could not right the ship, and Sink sailed to a 6-shot win in the 4-hole Open Championship-style playoff. Watson became the oldest to lead after 3 rounds in a major championship, but a win would have made him the oldest to ever win a major golf title that likely would never have been broken. Phil Mickelson holds the mark at this point for oldest to win a major after his win in 2021 at the PGA Championship at the age of 50. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. On this day in 1990, Pete Rose was sentenced to jail. It was a difficult day for Pete and a lot of baseball fans, and it was the continuation of a very bad 12 months for the man everybody remembers as Charlie Hustle. On this day, Rose was sentenced in a U.S. District Court to 5 months in prison for tax evasion. Rose pled guilty for failing to report income from money made selling his baseball memorabilia. A mere 5 years earlier, Rose had been on top of the world, surpassing Ty Cobb as the greatest hitter in the game with his 4,192nd hit. He added a few more to finish his career with 4,256, but then that pedestal began to crumble. In August of '89, Rose signed an agreement with Major League Baseball Commissioner Bart Giamatti to a lifetime ban from baseball in return for baseball not making a formal determination about whether he had bet on baseball. Rose had been accused of gambling heavily when he was a player-manager in the 1986 season, including the speculation that he gambled on his own team. After his guilty plea and sentencing on this day, he was ordered to remand himself to custody by August 10th, fined $50,000, and ordered to spend 1,000 hours in community service. Rose was contrite when he addressed the court, saying, "I hope no one has to go through what I went through this last year and a half. I lost my dignity, I lost self-respect, I lost a lot of dear fans, and almost some very dear friends." He did serve the full 5 months in the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, and was released on January 7th after paying $366,000 in back taxes with interest. On this day in 1946, a ventriloquist in the stands may have been the cause for a wild scene at Fenway Park. The Chicago White Sox were in town to play the Boston Red Sox. It started in the bottom of the third inning when pitcher Joe Haynes sent a little chin music in the direction of Ted Williams. Home plate umpire Red Jones issued a warning to Haynes. The White Sox dugout thought that was a bit of an overreaction, and several voices expressed displeasure. Well, one voice was apparently louder than all the others, and Red Jones took action against who he thought the offending party was and ejected reserve outfielder Ralph Hodgen, known to be a pretty quiet guy. Well, apparently the same voice kept on chirping. Jones had tossed the wrong man, but not to be a man of contrition, he tossed 3 additional White Sox players. Other players started yapping, at which point Jones ejected the entire bench to rid the dugout of the heckler. And yet, the yelling at the ump continued with some name-calling thrown in. When Jones was called a meathead by someone in the direction of the White Sox dugout, the mystery continued. In total, Jones tossed 14 players and coaches and still had not rid the park of the heckler. It was the most ejections in a single game in Major League history. So, who was the offending person? White Sox players later revealed that the voice was that of Mule Haas. He had positioned himself behind a long coat in the dugout and continued to shout at the umpire throughout the game. And on this day in 2009, 18-year-old Formula 2 driver Henry Surtees died during a race at Brands Hatch Racing Circuit in England. The randomness of Surtees' death is hard to fathom, but it did lead to improvements in safety. Jack Clark was about 10 spots in front of Surtees on the racetrack when he went off track and he hit a barrier. The impact with the barrier popped his rear wing and his left rear tire loose. The tire bounced across the racetrack, and it landed directly on Surtees' head. Surtees was knocked unconscious from the impact, and the video looks innocuous enough, but you can tell something is wrong when Surtees made no effort to turn his car in the next corner, and when he came to rest, his foot was stuck on the accelerator. He was removed from the car, stabilized, taken to the hospital, but he never regained consciousness. He was declared brain dead later that evening. His death was attributed to the 64-pound wheel assembly impacting his head. His death led to a couple of changes. One, an additional wheel tether was added to the car in 2011 to keep a dislodged tire with the car. Second, in 2018, the FIA mandated a halo cockpit protective structure so that even if a tire came dislodged and impacted the top of the racing cockpit, the halo surrounding the driver's head would likely protect the driver. A simulation of Surtees' fatal racing incident was used as one of the tests for the improvement, with officials saying it would have likely been a different outcome for Surtees if he'd had that on his car. Time now for today's Nothing to Do with Sports Fun Fact. Have you ever heard about Juliana, the World War II wonder dog? Well, Juliana was a Great Dane, and she was awarded a Blue Cross medal for her bravery in extinguishing an explosive by peeing on it. The German Luftwaffe dropped the incendiary device on her owner's home in 1941, and Juliana took immediate action. Juliana received a second Blue Cross award 3 years later for alerting her owner of a fire at their shoe shop. And once again, thanks for joining me here on this 600th episode of This Day in Sports History. And if you would be so kind to leave a review if you haven't already, or a 5-star rating and a comment on Spotify, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back for episode number 601 tomorrow. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.